welcome to the channel. My name is Annalisa, and today I am talking about a very niche topic. If you're new, I'm normally a booktuber. I talk about books that I've read, and pretty much books in English because that's the only language I'm fully fluent in. But I'm autistic. I have a special interest in storytelling. A subcategory of that is language, and so when I occasionally listen to or read things in other languages, I get very interested in them. And because right now I am reading some manga that was originally written in Japanese and which I have listened to the anime of in Japanese with English subtitles, it started me off in a spiral thinking about the Japanese language. Why am I comparing Japanese to Welsh? Well, these are both languages that were transcribed into Latin letters significantly after they formed as a language. With Welsh, it was because not very much of it was written down, and what was mainly pictographic. So when other language groups encountered them, i.e. conquered them, they wanted to have a way to write down Welsh in letters that they could understand. With Japanese, it was another attempt to make a bridge of understanding so that people who use Latin letters, so people who speak the Romance languages, would be able to sound out, at least to an extent, Japanese words, because Japanese words are written with characters that are vastly different from our alphabet. And the main reason I want to compare and contrast them is because as I have watched anime and been able to figure out the meanings of some words through that, because I will occasionally watch them with English speaking or English dubs and have subtitles in Japanese. Usually the Japanese subtitles are written out in Latin letters. On the sites that I use, they usually aren't written in Japanese characters. But as I read those words and listen to their translations, after I have also watched other animes where I've heard those words pronounced in Japanese, it occurs to me that it is really easy to sound out Japanese words. So an example is arigato. Now, somebody who has never heard Japanese before and is an American and pronounces things very flatly might see arigato. But still, that's a lot closer than I am able to get to Welsh words. And once I've heard it a couple of times, it is very easy for me, at least, to pick up the accent and say arigato. Gozaimasu, which tends to go with arigato, be arigato gozaimasu, thank you very much, or thank you in a more formal tone, whereas arigato by itself is more like thanks. Gozaimasu is a little bit funkier. Once you've heard the word and see it in text, you're like, yeah, that matches. And then there's hai, which is pronounced the same as hi, hi, but with a different emphasis and tone because it means okay or sure or even yes sir. It seems to be used from informal to formal a lot of different ways. Now, I have never actually studied Japanese. I have only learned it by reading and listening. So this isn't a lesson in Japanese or in Welsh, which I have also not studied. This is just a comment on the people who assigned Latin letters to Japanese words versus the people who assigned Latin letters to Welsh words. I'm now going to do Welsh equivalents, so like things for thank you, okay, in Welsh and show you how they're spelled versus how they're pronounced. So thanks in Welsh is spelled like this, and it's pronounced like this. Okay, part of what we have is just letters running together, which is a normal thing with people who are fluent in a language. They run their letters together a little bit because they're used to saying that word. But there is the definite thing where CH is used as a hard K sound as opposed to a ch sound. Then we have thank you very much, and this is how it's pronounced. Which, once you've heard it and seen it spelled, if you were picking from a bunch of different Welsh phrases, you could probably match those two up. But this doesn't come close to matching. English speakers, French speakers, or Spanish speakers would spell those sounds. Then we have brother, which is spelled like this and pronounced like this. Browd, which I can actually copy. I can't copy a lot of the Welsh words, and that one's not bad either. But once again, in English, you would spell that with an O, B-R-O-W-D. In Spanish, you wouldn't use a W, ow, ow. They do have some words that say ow. You'd use a O-U. And in French, I'm not sure what they would do, but it wouldn't look like that. And for okay, we have, again, the I-A-W-N being pronounced yawn. Yawn, instead of using an O, as the Romantic languages would do. And the reason that I find this odd is that you would expect the Welsh, who lived alongside the English for a very long time, to have a closer pronunciation, and also to have a closer spelling. And so I did some research into this, and apparently the Welsh was originally put into Latin characters back in 600 AD. So that was back when Old English was actually in use, and Old English is nigh indecipherable by modern English speakers, readers. Middle English isn't great either, but like Old English is even worse. In that way, it does make a lot of sense that the spellings would be very different. Also, 600 was pre-Shakespeare, and Shakespeare, because he wrote so much and his plays and other writings were so widely dispersed, he had a major effect on the language as far as codifying it and making it so everybody spelled the same words the same way. Before him, people kind of spelled things a bunch of different ways, even though they were speaking the same language. Plus, he also invented a fair number of words that hadn't been come up with yet, like elbow. Whereas Japanese was put into Latin characters in the 1600s, so a lot closer to modern day, and also, instead of being put into characters by the pre-English, Japanese words were first put into Latin characters by the Portuguese, who have a language that is very similar to Spanish, and Spanish is, in my and many other people's opinion, the most logical of all of the Romance languages, and of all of a lot of languages actually, because it is very codified and it has very many rules, and those rules are very rarely broken, whereas in languages like English, the rules are broken about half the time. So, arigato is pronounced the way that Spanish people would pronounce those letters. And I don't know why this is, but a lot of the sounds and ways that the Japanese language arranges itself, as far as having pretty much a vowel for every consonant, also has a lot of similarities to how Spanish is arranged. Now, obviously, Japanese didn't have consonants or vowels as it evolved, because they didn't have our type of lettering system. Kanji, however, which is basically the closest thing they have to an alphabet, is made up of sounds that have one consonant and one vowel. And that is basically how all of their words are made up. So I believe the breakdown of arigato would be a-ri-ga-to. And Spanish is very similar, except it even leans farther more towards having lots of vowels, whereas English and French both lean towards having lots of consonants. So an alternate title I was considering for this video, that is basically me spewing information about my special interest at you, was why you can speak some languages much faster than others, and some languages that can be spoken a lot faster than, say, English are Spanish and Japanese. And most of that is because of the high vowel to consonant ratio, and also because of some of the hard sounds and the more difficult for your mouth to make sounds that English has are not in Spanish or Japanese. And I also just find it interesting that despite evolving from totally different branches of language, that Japanese and Spanish have so much in common as far as the ways they arrange their sounds. Anyway, I found this really interesting and had a lot of fun making this video. I hope someone else in the world cares even slightly. But thank you so much for watching. If you did like this, let me know, because I would love to talk more about grammar and spelling across languages. If you don't have anything to comment, how about a globe emoji? And I'll see you in the next video. Bye!